This afternoon, we're going to try something a little different, or a little different format than most of you are used to. Our artist in residence, Ying will show you images and talk about her work for about 30 minutes or so. Then I'll introduce the writer, William Corbett, who wrote the essay in Ying Li's gorgeous catalog. After he reads a poem or two relating to Ying Li's work, he'll begin a conversation with her by asking her questions. Then he'll invite you, the audience, to also participate in a dialogue and come forward with your questions, and in that way, hopefully gain a better insight into the nature of Ying Li's artistic process and the spirit of her painting. Following the lecture, you are all invited to the opening reception of Ying Li's exhibition in the Jaffe Friedian Strauss Galleries upstairs in the Hopkins Center. If students are interested in meeting with Ying, please contact her directly over Blitzmail, or you can contact Gerald Otten, the director of the exhibitions program. Our guest today, Ying Li, is an exceptionally fine painter who was born in Beijing, China, and has lived in New York City for many years, and now is a professor at Haverford College outside Philadelphia. Ying Li began her life and career as an artist in China, where she was educated and subsequently taught at Anhui Teachers University until 1983, when she came to the United States. Though she was in a good position there and exhibited her work, Ying Li did not accept the censorship she experienced in her homeland and had the courage to leave in search of artistic freedom. Upon moving to the United States, she received her MFA degree in painting in 1987 from Parsons School of Design. She began exhibiting in New York at Bowery Gallery, where she had solo exhibitions in 1990 and 1992. At that time, she also began showing at Elizabeth Harris Gallery, where she had solo shows in 1994 and 1996. Her next 4 solo shows were at the Painting Center, and currently she is represented by Lowengadal Gallery in New York City, where she had solo shows in 2008 and 2011. Since 1990, Ying Li has had 31 person shows and exhibited in well over 80 two-person and group exhibitions. She had solo shows at Bryn Mawr College, Haverford College, Swarthmore College, University of Dayton in Ohio, as well as in Europe at the Enterprise House in Kiltimagh, County Mayo, Ireland, where they also awarded her an Artist Fellowship, at the Museum of Rochefort-en-Terre in Brittany, France, where she received 2 artist residences, and at Monte Castello di Vibio in Umbria, Italy, where she was a board member and on the faculty of the International School of Art. Her group exhibitions include venues such as the American Academy of Arts and Letters, the National Academy Museum, Tibor Denage Gallery, Laurie Bookstein Fine Arts, Chris Neptune Fine Arts, Koros Gallery, Denise Bibro Gallery, Westbeth Gallery, the Pennsylvania Academy of Art, the Hermitage Foundation Museum, Gross McLeaf Gallery, the Lancaster Museum of Art, Pennsylvania College of Art, and Chautauqua Institute, to name just a few. Ying has received 2 awards for painting from the National Academy of Design, where she exhibited her work several times. She's a member of the painting still life group called Zuxis. Artist fellowships have provided her the opportunity to travel throughout the world and paint the landscape in Italy, France, Ireland, Spain, Newfoundland, Maine, Maryland, Virginia, Vermont, and now here at Dartmouth. Ying is much sought after speaker and has lectured at such places as Queens College, Brooklyn College, Rutgers University, New School for Social Research, Sarah Lawrence College, Parsons School of Design, Swarthmore College, Syracuse University, Western Carolina University, the International School, and many, many other places. Informed by Chinese painting and calligraphy and by the New York School of Gestural Painting, Ying Li's work is moving and accomplished. She is engaged in extending the tradition of New York School artists and expressionist painters such as Willem de Kooning and Joan Mitchell. Based in nature, her painting moves fluidly between representation and abstraction. In his wonderful catalog essay, William Corbett wrote this, and I'd like to quote it. After the first glow or glare of a Ying Li painting and the frenzied all-overness of her drawings, mark-making tense with doubt and certainty, alive in their contradictions, what lingers does not disappear into meaning. The vitality of her strokes bring to the surface what she has seen and what she hopes to see. She goes for broke, then over the edge, achieving a raw, fierce fairness, unplanned as mountain or tree. You won't have to try hard when looking at her work because such is the nature of her imagination and technique, their unity, that Li makes it easy to give yourself to her art. I would like to add that Ying Li is an artist who has been tested in ways very few of us can imagine, developing a distinctive and original voice that synthesizes Chinese, European, and American traditions of landscape and figure painting. It's a pleasure to have her here with us today. Please welcome Ying Li.
Thank you, Colleen, for this, it's way too long introduction. And I'm just, it's amazing to be here. And I wanted to thank everybody for being here. And I wanted to thank the faculty of Studio Art and the student for having me. It's a big, big honor. And also, I wanted to thank Professor Colleen Randall and Professor Jerry Auden, director of the Studio Art exhibition program, for their guidance through me, through this whole process, curating the work and, get the show together. These are highly intelligent people. And also, they're so very kind. And I really appreciate that. And, without this exhibition, would not have been here without Jerry's commitment and his clear vision and his good sense of humor. And also I wanted to thank Susan Warp for her support and her friendship. And also Bill Corbett, the poet, for his insightful essay. And in a way, the essay and the show made me see my work clear. Okay, there's so many people I like to thank. And the last one, and also the first one's my husband, Michael, for just always being there, and for not mind to have me got paint on pretty much every piece of his clothes and his shoes. I was born in China and grown up what we call under the red flag. I want to get back to the first image here. This kind of work I grew up with. Yeah, please. Thank you. It's a typical propaganda painting during the Cultural Revolution, which is from middle 60s to the end of 70s. Under communist regime, art was the tool for the government, and artists serve the government and serve the politics. But I had the fortune to see work like this. This is not mine, and I think you guys that notice it's a beautiful Matisse, one of Matisse's goldfish. It's in the Pushkin Museum in Moscow. I saw this piece when I was in elementary school from my father's magazine. He taught Russian literature in a college in China. And I was sick that day, and so I got to just flip through his magazines. And there was this page, this piece, and Picasso's, one from his blue period. These two paintings struck me. They're so different from what I saw around me, and their color and that kind of mood, and it's just just amazing. And then Cultural Revolution came, and my father was accused of anti-revolutionary, so he was sent to labor camp. And soon after that, I was sent to countryside to work on the farm. I was there for 5 years. Moved from one village in the mountain, then I broke my leg, and they sent me to a flatter place. And I loved doodling, even when I was little. Draw something, and sort of I had this little secret time with myself. And but I started my painting career when I was in the countryside, painting Mao's portrait in the village. When I found out I could, just do something with brush, so they signed me to do those propaganda paintings. And it was just great because I got a chance to, fool around with paint. Also, I got better meals. Then all the schools start reopen in 1974. I was so excited. I thought, I wanted to study art, and I wanted to have some kind of formal training, but I found out I was not even qualified to apply because of my father's political background, and I was very, very angry. And so I found out where the place that gave exam. So I went there with my sketchbook. I sat there, draw, and luckily the professor sort of stood behind me, looked for a couple of seconds, and I thought he was going to kick me out, but he didn't. He didn't say a word. Later on, he fought so hard to get me into the college. The piece you are looking at is my thesis piece. At the time, I thought it was pretty cool, and I got all my friends to pose for me for each character, And also, I thought that the theme, it's a kind of a revolutionary. A bunch of college graduates, went to join a country's new development. That time, the Yangtze River, they were building this Nanjing Yangtze River bridge. I thought it was a great symbolic kind of meaning, for New China. But this piece didn't get passed because the woman in yellow dress, they said, she looked too bourgeois. How could you wear a dress such a light color and so tight, to go to work? And so they said, okay, you need to change this. I didn't change it, and I did another painting for the thesis show, which passed. And this painting I want to show because this woman is Agnes Smedley, American journalist who was a war correspondent in China during the 30s and the 40s. She was a big supporter for the Communist Party, and they really worked together with the Communist Party at the time. But when I painted this painting, I didn't know all this. I just, saw a little tiny black-white picture on the local newspaper, and this foreign character, has the features so different from, I myself and the people around me. It's kind of refreshing, see something, see some kind of a different looking. So, then I thought I got to paint her. And then I did a bunch of study and found out who she was. I thought, whoa, what a woman. And these, just some characters and people who, in the village where I worked. In 1983, I came to New York straight from China, after all those hours of flight. I only carried, 2 big roll of rice paper with me, and got out in Newark airport, and my husband came to, pick me up, and we drove towards Manhattan, and that was like, 6, 7 o'clock. The first thing struck me of America is this image of this, amazing skyline with this enormous light come through the city. It was just amazing. I never seen, so much light in my whole life. In China those days, 8 o'clock, everything's dark. And there are a few things that just stuck in my head, in my memory. My first experience in New York. Museum of Modern Art. First time I saw Van Gogh's Bather, the big Bather painting. The young man stood on the beach, had one arm holding like that, had his head a little, looking down. And it's such a plain painting, and he didn't have red cheeks like what I saw, every image in Chinese painting. And I heard his name, but I never seen a real, painting person. It was amazing. And the same day, I heard Abdullah Ibrahim, and jazz pianist, and Sweet Basil. That's, that's the second strike. And then another thing, just in my head, just stick in my head, the food stores. I saw those perfect looking fruit that almost look like the same size. They look so perfect. At the beginning, I thought they were wax, because I never see such a perfect, handsome looking fruit. Then that fall, there was a big de Kooning retrospective at Whitney Museum. First time I saw his work, it's just like spoke to me in my heart. There's so many things, but these few things are just like, just there, it's become part of me. And, but very soon, I got into this confusing time because I totally lost. I didn't know what to do with myself, and I couldn't place myself in the place in the art world. Also, I didn't know what to paint, even though I knew what I didn't want to paint. During that time, I did a bunch of Chinese paintings, which I hated in China because I thought they would look so boring, no color and then no action. They look painted, with the soy sauce, and so I said, okay, I'm going to, to study more. I went to Parsons School of Design MFA program, studied with Leland Bell, Paul Resica, and John Hallaker, 3 great painters. Those 2 years really helped me grounded and just find what I really want to do, which is really just paint. And Leland meant just so much to me. And he didn't teach me how to paint. Like all the good teachers, they can't teach you how to paint, but they open your eye. And that's what he did to me. This is one of the pieces I did in the grad school, and you can see the way painted just totally, swing from one end to the other. Now I think back, it's really not like one way is better than the other. It's really my reaction to what, I didn't want at the time. And, it's like a sense of a freedom. I can just throw paint on the canvas and, just let it go. Such a corny painting. But I was happy, you can see that time. And after graduate, I started to, just like every artist, get your little space somewhere. And I found that there's a little space in Bowery. I started to do my thing. And I started to think about the way to use my body and, to let the brush stroke talk like, the best Chinese painters could do. And I had a very small space, so I painted a big window. You can see de Kooning's, I had this amazing fortune to teach at the International School of Art in Umbria in Italy for 8 summers. That place really got me into landscape because you just couldn't escape from it. So I'm going to show you a bunch of this, painted in, pretty much the same view, but in different time, and maybe switch a little bit my angle and the time of day and the mood. It's my window, look down the valley. And I can't resist to show a couple of paintings from Vermont. I was a resident in Vermont Studio Center for a couple of times. And one time, the second time, I was there during the month of October. It was just amazing because I just, went through from green leaf to bright, all kinds of color you could imagine. Then every color, overnight down on the ground. And the bare leaves and everything, got, sharper and harsher. And one day I was at the bank of the river, which I stayed for, I just stayed in that spot for the whole month. I had this sensation I was really become part of the landscape. That was just an amazing experience. I felt I was in it, and just a little part of it. The waterfall in Vermont. And landscape painting really got me, I think, I don't know, because I love to travel, it got me into landscape, or landscape got me to really, travel. So I look for every opportunity to go places, to see places and to paint in different places. And this is a Maryland, Southern Maryland, St. Mary's City. I did a couple of residencies at St. Mary's College. I got there the first time right after Italy. So I thought, what I'm doing here, I had the best landscape in Italy. And, but they schlepped me around, and then I saw this boat, a 17th century duplica of a trading vessel. It felt like I met a friend, so I spent a whole month painting this boat. These works all, worked on the spot, and then bring back to the studio on it, and print it out and rework on it. Some finished in my studio in New York, maybe a couple of years later, and some just finished right on the spot. A night dove. The name of the boat is a Maryland Dove. And one day I was painting, the boat just took off. So that's the beauty of landscape painting. So I just painted the air. And this is a little kind of, the place. Then this is a Cranberry Island in Maine, the town duck. I love this structure. It's stable, it's not stable. It's a part of a water, part of a land, and they're built up by, just like sticks of, there's so much, like the strokes. And it was fun to paint it. Newfoundland, Fogo Island, Newfoundland. This painting I had, so much going on, so many paintings under it, and kept paring it down. And when I was painting, I always, I sort of like a conversation with myself, a debate with myself. I think every one of you, find that, you do that. It's like, you want this, you don't want this, and how much you want it, or is this the way to go? Just all this kind of, debating and struggling, and then the painting end up like this. It's an amazing structure of that place. That they have these, layers of architecture built around the bay and the coast. Southern Spain, Valparaiso Foundation. I was there for a month, and it's a kind of a desert, very close to the Mediterranean also. Alaska. Birch trees. And the same time also I set up my backboard porch in a college, where we have an apartment there. And I painted this tree for a few years. This is one of them. In a way, sometimes you feel like you don't have to go far to make a painting, but then sometimes you feel like you have to go to the end of the world, to make a painting. A different season, a different day of. I love snow. Also, I love paint in snow. Oh, just a lot of fun. Actually, I experiment. When the paint sort of, the snowflakes got to grind into the paint, and I thought it would deteriorate, but actually just somehow just stay there. And so far, nothing happened. It's been like 2 years. The paint. And night oak. Some of these paintings have finished in my studio in New York. To be able to paint on one spot, I just keep digging into it, really, in a way, forced me to, to look into deeper, to find this, my way to do this place or to do whatever this subject is, and these ones, it's a more abstracted, and it's a big painting, and it's a very recent. I thought, I really got that feeling of, you could sort of be, part of this environment. It doesn't matter, it's not my interest to describe trees or the architecture. It's really about the feel. What you're looking at, I wanted to share with you some of my what I'm thinking lately, and or in the past few years. What you're looking at is what we call the 6 principles of Chinese painting, written by Xie He, who was a 6th century art historian writer in China. He was talking about those points you needed to take for consideration when you look at the work and when you judge a piece of work. Number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're more about technique and the formal issues, such as how to use your brush and how to apply color and the composition, and copying from work of antiquity, not only from life, and also how to do the tones, all the stuff. But the number 1 is the most important elements, the vitality, the spirit resonance. And he said, without spirit resonance, not worth to keep looking. And always, I think back to that line. How you can put life into the work. And a painting is not just a painting, it's really a piece of life. And I'll give you a couple of examples of, I think the best work to illustrate what he was talking about. This is by Song Dynasty painter Fan Kuan. I thought this is an ultimate landscape painting. He really went for the monumentality of nature, and you could just feel the weight and feel the presence and the spirit of the mountain. Does this look like, could be a modern American painter? Somebody like Bryce Martin, the ribbons. And it's a 16th century painter named Shi Tao. I thought it was just so beautiful and so sensitive, the way how he, used the overlapping brush and the water, and he really got this feel of the moist. Liang Kai, another Song Dynasty painter, they called him Mad Liang. He was official turned monk, and he did his best work when he was drunk. But this is I thought this, just think of what required to do something like that. You have to be so confident, and but also so disciplined, and at the same time you have to have the confidence to let accident happen. It's a detail of this piece of calligraphy by Huang Gongwang, a Song Dynasty calligrapher. I just love the way he had his brush dancing through the surface of the paper, and you feel like he did it in one breath. And but also if you could see the richness of this very simple tool, which is the ink, water, and the brush, and the thickness, and you can feel the ink went through the paper, and some just hardly sliding down, sliding through on the surface, and also the variation on the form, the big, small, and also the negative space. And they could just breathe so beautifully. That's the tip of the brush. My old calligrapher teacher always say, the brush is like ballerina's, tip of the shoe, and it's the center. Everything is there. And this is Zhang Daqian, 20th century painter. And I just love this picture. You feel that, the concentration is so generated, like the tip of the brush. And this is his work. Milton Resnick. I love this piece. It's a huge piece. It's like, pretty much occupied this wall. First time I saw this piece at Chime Reed Gallery, it's just when you see it, you feel like you could just jump into it. These are the artists, give you a sense of scale. And also, to me, this is very much like Chinese painting. You know, how the brush work, form the, the tones and the form and the space. At the same time, they're so, so complete by itself. I don't know who the sculptor is, but I love these floating strokes in the air. Okay, I'm going to just show a few drawings. To me, drawing is like daily food. It's really helped me going and help my painting going. Even though I don't draw the landscape and I don't draw before I paint, but drawing is as its own just activity. And we have Wednesday evening drawings, open drawings at Haverford College. Everybody, could come to just draw and paint and sculpt. Always, I'm there, draw with my students. And these, my students, actually, they pose. And we have professional models. We have student models. Oh, okay. This is something very different. I put this on just to try to amuse my friend Michael Moore, because he sent me this box of golf ball, and which I never seen before. And so I just painted this through the winter, and I still can't get it. Just nobody could recognize it's a golf ball. But anyway, I give it an effort. Okay. Yeah, and I would love to have Bill, join me. Yeah, please. Could we have a light, please?
Thank you, Ying. And I just want to briefly say something to thank William Corbett for coming this afternoon and say that he's here he wrote the introduction in Ying's catalog, so I hope you all get a copy. And he's here to conduct a dialogue with her and with you, the audience. And just for those of you, to give a brief introduction, he lives in Boston's South End. He teaches writing at MIT. He's published books on the painters Philip Guston and Albert York. He serves on Manhattan's Q Art Foundation Advisory Board and directs a small press called Pressed Wafer. He edited Just the Thing, Selected Letters of James Schuyler, and Hanging Loose published his book of poems, The Whalen Poem, in 2011. So welcome.
Had Ying used the line painted with soy sauce, it would have been in the catalog. Next time. We're in the midst of a story that began for me when I was about 15, reading for the first time Ezra Pound's translations from the Chinese that he published in the small book Cafe. Pound has been called the inventor of Chinese poetry for the American and English sensibility. He worked with the notes of Ernst Fenollosa. Fenollosa himself had never been to China. Pound never got to China. The River Merchant's Wife, A Letter. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it isn't probably, but I think they can hear me. Okay. I was struck. I'd never seen Lee Ying's thesis painting before. Look at all that water. The river merchant's wife, a letter. While my hair was still cut short across my forehead, played I about the front gate, pulling flowers. You came by on bamboo stilts, playing horse. You walked about my seat, playing with blue plums. And we went on, living in the village of Shokan, two small people without dislike or suspicion. At 14, I married my Lord Yu. I never laughed, being bashful. Lowering my head, I looked up at the wall, called to 1,000 times. I never looked back. At 15, I stopped scowling. I desired my dust to be mingled with yours forever and forever and forever. Why should I climb the lookout? At 16, you departed. You went into far Kutuyen by the river of swirling eddies, and you have been gone 5 months. The monkeys make sorrowful noise overhead. You dragged your feet when you went out. By the grass now, the moss has grown, the different mosses, too deep to clear them away. The leaves fall early this autumn in wind. The paired butterflies are already yellow with August over the grass in the west garden. They hurt me. I grow older. If you are coming down through the narrows of the river Kiang, please let me know beforehand, and I will come out to meet you as far as Chofu Sa. Spiritual resonance. An American translation of that might be Emerson's idea. Well, the line is, every poem needs one wild cry from the heart. I did edit Jimmy Schuyler's letters. I've loved his poetry for a long time. And when I was writing about Ying, this credo of Jimmy's seemed irresistible. I'm going to read the whole section, not just the part quoted. So many lousy poets, so few good ones. What's the problem? No innate love of words, no sense of how the thing said is in the words, how the words are themselves the thing said. Love, mistake, promise, auto crack up, color, petal. The color in the petal is merely light, and that's refraction. A word, that's the poem. A blackish red nasturtium, roses shed on a kitchen floor, a cool and scented bed to loll and roll on. I wish I had a rose or butterfly tattoo, but where? Here on my arm or my inner thigh, small, where only the happy few might see it? I'll never forget that moving man, naked to the waist, a prize fight buckle on his belt, Panama, and flying high on each pectoral, a bluebird on tan sky skin. I wanted to eat him up. No such luck. East 28th Street, 1950. How the roses pass. Let's talk. Ying, I was in Boston yesterday with Sebastian Smee, the Globe art critic. I'd given him your catalog. He's Australian, and he said, ask her two things for me. His sister in Australia has been buying paintings by Chinese artists. He didn't know who, but they're contemporaries with you, and they had a lot of paint on them. And he said, what is it? Ask her, is this a Chinese phenomenon? Lots of paint on the paintings.
I think, for a long time, we couldn't use much paint. And we didn't have access to paint. And so when you get your hands on it, you just want to have a go. And it's the same thing like people, try to make money like mad there, because they didn't have a chance to do that.
Well, and something that came out of that as I was thinking of the question is John Walker, who uses a lot of paint, had a monster show in China about 1.5 years ago.
Yeah, right.
And now they're buying paintings all over. I mean, they're just crazy about them. So, yeah, the gates are open.
Yeah.
Let it flow.
Yeah.
Sebastian also wanted me to ask you if you have any affinity at all with Frank Auerbach or Leon Kossoff.
Oh yeah, I love those painters. I love that kind of physicality. To me, painting is a blue collar work. It's work, and I just, I respond to that. It doesn't mean, I don't like, let's say, somebody like a Wugolo. I love Wugolo too, but just, it's another way of labor, I would say.
Do you actually use your hands when you paint?
You can't help to get your hands there. It's sort of like before you know, and your hands are all over. And sometimes you try to take some things off, take some extra off, or the pen, you try to scoop it. But I've been careful because I really got all over and then started to have the skin problem.
Sure.
So I wore gloves. Yeah.
What other implements do you use? De Kooning made a big jump in his career when he began to go to hardware stores and buy all kinds of odd brushes that he'd never used.
Right.
Do you have any secret implements that you stick with?
I don't. It's really, when you're in the middle of a painting, you just you look for something can do something for you, and but I do. I look at the stuff in the hardware store or flea market, thrift store. Sometimes, the kitchen stuff, whatever. Just at the moment. Also, I use sculptors too. Yeah.
There's Milton Resnick, and I'm reminded of a conversation that was reported that he and de Kooning had after they had come from a show of Chinese social realistic paintings. And de Kooning, it was Milton Resnick quoting de Kooning saying, that could even be done well too. Do you think so?
Very true, very true. I saw a show 2 years ago in China, in New York, in the Asia Society, something like the social realist paintings during Cultural Revolution period, and those painters, they're amazing. These painters, they trained in the French Academy kind of a tradition. Came from Russia, and my teacher was one of them. And they could paint beautifully. They could paint something like a Monet, and I do think because when the painter start painting, and when you get into it, it's not a fruit or a tree or whatever anymore. It's it's really becomes something else. That thing I think is in common for whatever you do, abstract or you are realistic painter. The painting itself, the way you respond to your your material. That's just in common for all kinds of painters. Include a religious painting, a painter or socialist.
And certainly, just as political ideas recede, religious ideas have receded. I mean, we go to Italy, agnostics or atheists like me, and I can look at the painting and say it's terrific, but I do not feel the subject matter. And I could imagine that the politics of Mao will recede.
You sound just like my husband.
Oh, whom I haven't met yet, but then I'll sit at his knee and learn more. I haven't seen you to talk to since the big de Kooning show at the Modern. You must be looking at him differently. What did you see this time that maybe you hadn't seen before? And what thoughts do you have now?
I think the most thing I think about is the persistence and a painter who just, painting is your life, and you keep go after that, and also you never satisfied, with what you're doing. You always look for the next and the push to the next, and that's the thing I got most from the show. The individual pieces, I felt, I look to see his work and the search to see his work, for years, and I felt I know them, and they're not like as fresh and as striking the first time I saw them, 20-some years ago. But they spoke to me even better because after all these years of painting myself, I could really feel, what a painter, what to get a painter going, that kind of a.
I had two thoughts, and maybe, well, I had more than that, but two big thoughts after seeing the show 3 times, and maybe these will occasion something. One is in Susan Scott, the painter, whom you know, put it in a 2-word sentence, no formula.
I don't agree.
He would, really? Okay,
No,
we'll come back to that.
Okay.
The other one for me is my dream room of painting was finally there. You walked around the corner and there's Gotham News and these city paintings that have just surged with a life that it's like he held the electricity in his hand, and then across from them, the great Highway Landscape series with the big brush. I'm told that Jasper Johns went through the show and somebody said to him, "What do you think, Jasper?"
Yeah.
He said, "I think I ought to buy some bigger brushes." But you don't.
should.
Yeah. Woo. But you don't agree that de Kooning, there's no formula? He's willing to tear apart everything?
No, there is formula in the way, he has an incredible foundation, this guy, and the way he understands painting, he knows what make a good painting, and he always has those elements in the work. And the one thing I thought was just amazing, see the show. This one hand, the painting looks so raw and so explosive or whatever, but at the same time, they're so sophisticated and they're so refined. That kind of a mixture is just, just amazing. I think in a way, his foundation's always there, and he always, sort of going back to it. He always think about space, think about overall compositions, and think about, the scale of the brush stroke and the size of the canvas. You never feel too crowded in the small painting. You never feel empty in the big ones. That kind of a, he's maybe I shouldn't say formula. I should say. He has these, consistent, issues through all the work.
Well, I guess one thing that in the ones I love the most, they seem to be totally American and of that moment because he gets melodrama into them. He's not afraid of vulgarity. He's not afraid to, well, you're not either. You're going to go, as I said in the catalog essay, for broke. Let's swipe it on. And that gives it that physicality, it seems.
Or frustration.
How could there be any of this without frustration?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Frustration is a great thing.
you know,
Yeah.
I mean, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
Walk in every day and say, "Oh, did another one."
Yeah.
Another day, another dollar. What else have you been? A show like this, at Dartmouth often leads artists to reevaluate themselves or to want to look at new stuff, want to close the door and say, well, now I'd like to go home and do something that would excite me anew. Any thoughts? Anybody you've been looking at? You got any trips planned?
You know, I only saw the show today, this afternoon. I've been here for a week. I started in studio. Actually, I started with Watteau. I just, you know, he really speak to me, and more so. And you know, I look at his work, and the show I saw 2 years ago at Metropolitan Watteau Music and Theater, and just stick in my head.
Oh, that was a.
Oh, just you know, there's somebody so virtuoso, you know, just. So I start there, you know, I really think about, you know, how could he get all the stuff, the landscape, the figures, the feelings, the gestures, you know, the stories behind it, all in that little tiny space. It's just you know, just incredible. There are few friends we sort of like we're obsessed with Watteau, and Susan is one, and Stanley Lewis is another one, and you know, to me, he's so contemporary. You know, he's just like right there. He's just, you know, sort of like a pat on your shoulder, said, you know, you could do this way, and you know, like that. So, in the way the work in the show, you know, it's done. You know, I'm more sort of like, you know, I'm thinking what I'm doing, you know, right at this moment. What I'm going to deal with this little painting I just start outside of the kitchen door in the apartment I'm staying here. That's what's in my head.
Where will you be next the coming summer? You going to go anywhere?
I have to learn how to drive first thing. when we get back to New York.
This could be.
And then I'm going to Maine. I go back to Cranberry Island and to paint there for a month.
De Kooning never learned to drive.
You know, but he is de Kooning, you know.
You are Lee. Come on. This is not chopped liver. But he did the highway landscape paintings as he was being driven around. Why don't you guys weigh in?
Yeah, let's get.
This could be anything. Take this wherever you'd like it to go.
Yeah, some questions, or you know, anything you like to just jump in, like these questions that we just had. You know, I need a lot of help.
Yeah, she needs a lot of help.
Yeah.
Oh, there's always this awkward moment. It's understandable. Yes, dear.
I was wondering, when you think about it, de Kooning's paintings were made 50 or 60 years ago, you know, and I always think, for me, I was young. But for students, they weren't even alive then. And you're talking about Watteau and de Kooning and everything, and how do you bring works of art from the past that were maybe groundbreaking and they had that initial excitement? How did they stay alive and relevant?
It's a great question. You know, it's a great question. I think that there is no answer, like a general kind of answer. I think it's such a depend on your personal experience. You know, for me, because the first time I saw a Western painting, that was in 1983. You know, I was over 30. And so to me, they're just, you know, they're fresh. You know, they're right there. And I think it's just like a good piece of literature. Never, then you don't think about that anymore. When I see a painting, like when I see a massaggio, when I see the, Adam and Eve, in the Brancasi chapel, bring me to tears. It's just it's more like a kind of a human connection. The time sort of. That's the power of art, I think. They're just right there with me. That's how I feel. And with my students, I think you have to get these guys to talk about this. I think there's so much to do with if you see all the stuff, if you go to museums, and besides, working on the computer, and I don't think these things are so separated. I think they're part of our experience and a part of what exists, and that's how I see it.
Creating a live tradition and an active tradition has always been an American burden. When we come from everywhere, how do we do it? One of the things that those people who love poetry or love painting or are teachers have to do is they have to create an appetite for it. And they cannot treat students as if, well, you don't know who de Kooning is, you ought to.
Yeah.
Well, there's a whole bunch of things I don't know that
Right.
those students know.
Let's see. That's good to see it.
And you better remember that if you talk about Watteau, they need to know who Watteau is. You just can't be slick. When you're teaching painting students, I do crits at BU with John Walker, you expect them. And John says, you got to look at this.
Yeah.
You've got to know this.
Yeah.
And he says it with such force and such command that if they're not going to look at it, they're going to have a good reason for it. He also stresses something that I think is vital. Studentmanship is what he calls it. Stay in your studio. Things will be resolved there. Draw, 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 draw. This interests me particularly because there's nothing like that in poetry. There's no moment where the model comes in and we sit there and I show up behind the kid and go, no, not that comma there. We don't have, and we don't have scales like music, so yeah.
I hate to be a killjoy, but we gotta get out of here. They're setting up for another show in 2 minutes.
So could we continue this?